All right, everybody. Welcome to episode 23 of the Fantasy Timeline. Wow, I'm already off my
You can
game
start it
today.
over. I'll cut it out.
Yeah. Let's try this again. Welcome to episode 23 of the Fantasy Timeline. I'm Josh at Real Fantasy TL. I'm with my main man, Bill at Super Dupaflex. Bill, how you doing, man?
Good. Just I got out of the house today, which was fantastic, and I'm ready to talk some wide receivers.
Wide receivers, man. That's kind of the flavor of this episode. If you're in the YouTube live stream here, you obviously see a third person with us. We got Devin Sperle. Devin, I hope I said your last name right.
Yeah, that's right.
Awesome. At Dynasty Devin on Twitter. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on the show, guys. Happy to be here.
Oh, appreciate having you. So quick question with all the craziness going on. What part of the country are you from?
I live just outside Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay. All right, cool. So I'm in the Northeast and Bill's in Detroit. Is it as crazy down there as it is everywhere else? Probably.
Yeah, it hasn't been fun these last few weeks, to say the
Nah,
least.
definitely not. But we're gonna brighten spirits here by talking some fantasy, some dynasty, and we're definitely getting to some wide receivers today. And talking about wide receivers, this happened, I think, the day after our last episode. Brandon Cooks is traded to the Texans, and I put in quotes. Bob made this trade, so we know it's a bad NFL trade. But what do you guys think this does to his dynasty value? Devin, why don't you go first?
Honestly, I've always really liked Brandon Cooks. I own him in a lot of spots, and I think he's been pretty underrated throughout his career. I mean, he's put up 1,000-yard seasons with three different teams, three different quarterbacks throwing him the ball. So, I like Sean Watson. I think that this could be a good move for him. I think that uh, I potentially see this being a better situation than he was in with the Rams. I like Watson more than Goff, and there's less competition for targets as well. So I think it's actually a pretty good move for him.
What about you, Bill?
Yeah, I agree. I think also they're going to use him a little differently in Houston. So he's not just going to be the deep threat. They're going to use him a little bit more in the intermediate routes, and it's probably good. So I actually don't agree with your comment in the parentheses about it has to be a bad trade because Bill O'Brien made it. Because the last one was bad, but that doesn't mean that this one's bad. Now they might net out to a negative to some people, but I think this trade was actually a good trade for the Texans.
The reason why I said it was a bad trade is because of what they gave up to get him. Now, don't get me wrong. This is last year was the first season that he didn't have 1,000 yards since his rookie season. So for 5 straight years, he was over 1,000 yards and 5 to 9 touchdowns, which is pretty good. I think with all of the concussions last year and the fact that the Rams were pretty much telling the league that they wanted to get rid of this guy, I think giving up a second was a lot for him. I think they could have gotten him for cheaper, even if they had waited until the draft, until maybe even day 2, where they traded that second round pick. But I agree with Devin. I think this actually boosts his value a little bit. I mean, he's gonna be the number one in Houston, barring another trade. Even if they, bring in another rookie, I think they have pick 40 that they got from the Cardinals. So even if they bring in another wide receiver there, he's going to be the number one. So I think people who have been kind of holding on to Brandon Cooks should feel good about it because they have a number one receiver. And like you said, Bill, Deshaun Watson is throwing on the ball. So that can't, that definitely is not going to hurt. So, but yeah, I put it was a bad trade, a bad NFL trade, just because I think for the contract they took on, the amount of concussions Brandon Cooks had last year, I think they could have gotten him for less. But I mean, I guess if that was your guy, you do what you have to do to get your guy. And a few days ago, we saw the big contract extension for Christian McCaffrey, 4 years, $64 million. Does the extension affect the way you view him at all? Give you more hope? Give you less hope? Bill, why don't you start off?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy that he had signed the extension. I have him in a couple leagues, I think, and I was a little concerned. I was really trying to move him because there's always a concern that at some point he's going to hold out. So this prevents that. There's still some current concerns, but it has nothing to do with the contract. Like how's he going to be utilized in the new offense? I think I saw something where they said that they don't want him out on the field, as much as he was last season, which makes a lot of sense. I mean, you can't just keep doing that, but yeah, the contract's nothing but positive news, in my opinion, for his value.
How do you feel about it, Devin?
Yeah, I like it a lot, actually. I mean, not in terms, if I was a Panthers fan, I might not be happy about spending that much money on a running back, but for fantasy purposes, I think it's great. One of the important things I think to note about this contract is that those 4 years don't even kick in until 2 years from now. So
Right.
He's under contract until age 30. So you can pretty much, I mean, assuming that things go well for him with the new coaching staff and stuff this year, I mean, you're looking at solid production from him, until the end of time, pretty much until he's ready to retire.
Yeah, and I think this actually should make owners happy, whether they are trying to trade him kind of maybe at peak value or they are trying to keep him on their team. Like you said, Devin, you kind of where he's going to be for the next until he's 30. So if you are trying to sell him, you can kind of maybe let an owner kind of know that and kind of give him that comfort and stability and let him know that, hey, he's going to be in the same spot. They're probably not going to get rid of him until he's 30. So you have another 6 years of him. And if you were someone that was high on him, but you were worried about maybe a holdout occurring if he didn't get his money, well, now you don't have to worry about that because, again, he's going to be there until he's 30. So, yeah, I think either way, I think it's a win-win, whether you're trying to trade him and maybe get that value or you're trying to keep him.
Before we get going, let's let Devin talk about a publication that is out for sale, from his website.
Sure. So I run dynasty101.com. We've been putting together a yearly rookie, what we call our rookie digest. This is year number 4 putting that together. Bill works with us on that. Bill scouts our quarterbacks and writes about them. So our pre-draft edition just went live this last weekend. And I've got it pulled up right now. It's currently at 165 pages. The post-draft edition will be probably close to double that. I'd say it's going to get close to about 300 pages by the time we add updates, and we're adding in a whole Devy section that's going to be in there as well. So got lots of great content, going deep at all the positions. You got film analysis, metrics, draft assessments, all the good stuff in there. So it's kind of like a one-stop shop for your rookie scouting. So that's available at dynasty101.com. It's $10 and you're getting the pre-draft version, and you'll get another post-draft update a couple weeks after the NFL draft.
And everyone, I mean, I'm lucky. I have Bill here every week. He's scouting quarterbacks for this, but we've also had Kyle on who has scouted the running backs. We have Devin on this week who scouted the wide receivers. And so far, everyone who's come on, and obviously, Bill and I talk all the time. Really smart people, putting work in, giving you analysis. So, I mean, for $10, I mean, you can't even go to McDonald's and get a meal anymore without spending $10. So, get your 10-piece chicken nugget meal. Just throw it. Get the rookie guide, and you're gonna get a lot more out of it than that meal at McDonald's. So, yeah, I mean, Devin, we're glad to have you on. We're actually we're giving one of these away. We're going to talk about that a little bit later in the episode.
Yeah, we're actually going to give a couple copies out too.
Oh, couple copies.
Yeah, so it's for anybody who does a rating and review for on iTunes or whatever it is, Apple Podcasts, or if you take a screenshot of your subscription from another directory and send it to either myself, Josh, or to the Fantasy Timeline account. And we'll do a couple drawings, and a couple of you guys will get copies.
Yeah, so, I mean, again, real smart people. Bill, I have him every week, thank goodness. But Kyle was on. Kyle just dropped so much knowledge about the running backs. Was actually in a rookie draft a couple weeks ago, and some of the tidbits that Kyle dropped actually kind of helped me during a pre-NFL rookie draft. So, again, Dynasty 101. We'll talk about it at the end of the episode, but their rookie guide, get it. You're not going to be disappointed. So now that we've kind of cruised through the news, we're gonna go with what we saw on the timeline. So our first one is from Josh Spiker. I hope I'm saying that right. At Josh_Spiker. It's looking like OBJ can be had for about a mid-rookie first-round pick in a lot of leagues. If that's the case in your league, buy him ASAP. So, if we're looking at mid-first-round picks, and Devin, you can tell me if I'm wrong, probably looking at CeeDee Lamb and Jerry Jeudy there. How would you kind of compare them to a player like OBJ?
I think that both of those players that you mentioned, Lamb and Jeudy, have that type of wide receiver one potential that you see from OBJ. My thoughts at this current moment, while I think that value-wise, OBJ is, that's fair value for him. If I am not a currently, team competing for a championship, I'm probably not making that trade. I'm probably holding the picks because I'll just preface this by saying I've never owned OBJ on any of my teams. And at this point, he's not somebody that I'm looking to go out and get either. I just think there's so much uncertainty with kind of his usage in Cleveland, first of all, and second of all, just his attitude issues have had him shipped out of New York, and now there's rumors that he could be shipped out of Cleveland. And with that, I don't want to say that he is the next Antonio Brown, but you would hate to see that type of downward spiral with somebody that you're spending a first round pick on.
Well, and add to that he's been dealing with injuries, it seems like, for the last 3-4 years. So those are a lot of concerns. And if you're not, I agree, if you're not a contender, I mean, it's almost worth, like, I have him in a couple leagues, and it's hard for me to sell him for that cheap. Do you know what I mean? Just because he's been at such a high level, and he's always been like wide receiver 1 through 3. And but I get it. I mean, who's going to take the chance of paying huge on him now? There's just, like you said, I mean, if you go to another offense, and it takes time for the wide receivers to learn the system, get timing with the new quarterback, and it might be a shortened, camp this year. How much can you expect out of him? And he's recovering from a core surgery. So there's a lot of things that are working against him this year.
It's just a tough situation overall because I feel like if you own, like you said, if you own him, you have to hold because you can't sell for that cheap. And if you're going out and buying, I don't think that you want to take on that risk. So it's kind of I think if you own him, you're probably stuck with him for the moment.
Yeah, and Devin, as you alluded to, there are rumors that OBJ is on the trade block. One of the big ones I saw today was him getting traded to Minnesota. If that's the destination, are we kind of looking at Stefan Diggs 2.0, where all the talent is there? We know the guy can play, but he's in an offense with Adam Thielen. Irv Smith looks like he's coming up. Dalvin Cook is going to get receptions. And are we kind of pulling our hair out every week saying, is this going to be the OBJ week or is this another Adam Thielen week? And even if it's not Minnesota, there could be a lot of other destinations where he's, maybe in a 1A, 1B timeshare, for lack of a better word, where you're not sure where he's going to be, is it his week? So, yeah, I mean, if you're a contender, sure, spend the, maybe 1.6 to 1.8 on him and pick him up and, add him to your team. But like you said, Devin, if you're not contending, if you're, let's just say you're 105 or 106, take CeeDee Lamb, take Jerry Jeudy, depending on who you think is better or ends up in the better spot, and build your team.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the DLF Trade Finder to kind of see what he's going for, because I have a hard time believing he's actually moving for that low.
Yeah.
So here's one example: Odell Beckham and Curtis Samuel for Aaron Jones, Boykin, and Evan Ingram. Beckham for DJ Moore straight up.
That's crazy.
So, let's see here. What's another one? Beckham for Woods in the 111.
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe it's not that far off. I mean, looking at that, Beckham for the 106 and 110.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
I
I
think
mean, his value has fallen a lot over the last year and a half, 2 years. And I do have to say, Josh, I agree. I saw the rumors to Minnesota, and if that's the case, I mean, I'll die laughing because what was it that Stephon Diggs complained about all last season? Not getting targets.
Yep.
And what does Odell care about? He cares about getting targets, man. He
Yep.
cares about those stats. He cares about all that stuff. And if he will be complaining within a week if that's the case.
And he's going from a situation in Cleveland. I mean, Jarvis Landry's there, but he's the alpha. Nick Chubb doesn't really catch passes. They don't have a tight end that is heavily used in the offense. I mean, they have Hooper now. Maybe he's that guy, who knows. But last year there weren't a lot of people trying to pull targets away from him. Yes, he was injured, which kind of led to a decrease in the stats. But if he gets shipped to Minnesota, I mean, Kirk Cousins and Adam Thielen are like best buds, when at least on the field. It seems like that's always Kirk Cousins' first read. Dalvin Cook can catch passes. Irv Smith, I think, is going to kind of come up this year, so he's going to be demanding some of that as well. And Odell Beckham as a second option, I agree with you. I don't see that sitting well with him.
Well, and add to that the fact that they just have lower volume of passes.
Right.
I mean, the offense is through the run game. So, I mean, he might get an equal percent share, but his targets as a whole are going to be lower.
Yeah, exactly. So, Devin, I think you said it perfectly. if you're a contender, okay, go make the trade. If your team is pretty stacked and this is just kind of a cherry on top. But if you need this year to kind of get some pieces, build through the draft, make a couple trades, get Judy, get Lamb.
Yeah, and if it's a 2 QB or a super flex league, I mean, that makes it even harder to give up that pick because you could definitely see one of those top running backs getting pushed down the board too.
Yeah, and it could also be a situation, even let's just say, 106, 107, if you can't, maybe both are on the board, maybe Lamb and Judy are on the board, and you can't make the decision. That's almost a perfect situation to trade down to, and maybe look at, Ruggs or Jefferson if you like those guys. So there's a lot of wide receiver talent, especially in the second half of that first round, that can be had.
Devin, where do you put the wide receivers in this class? Let's say in a super flex.
So in a super flex, let me just make sure that because when I don't look at my rankings, I tend to leave somebody out. But I've got Lamb and Judy at 6 and 7 exactly in a super flex. So I've got Tua and Burrow ahead of them and the top 3 running backs.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't know what rookie ADP is, but I have a feeling it's pretty similar. So when I think of those two guys, I always think of them in that 106 to 108 range where they usually go off the board. So, yeah, it all depends on team makeup, like Josh said. But, remember, if you're the 106 or 107 and that wasn't a pick you got in a trade, you're legitimately kind of one of those middle of the pack teams. Maybe Odell Beckham isn't the right play. But now we're gonna go to our next one from Superflex Junkie at Superflex Junkie. So he says, which side? 12-team, half-point PPR, Superflex. The 105 or Michael Gallup and the 202. So Bill, why don't you start off? Which side would you take here?
Oh, that's tough. So super flex. So that gives me one of the top. I could pick my choice basically of the top wide receiver or the third quarterback or the third running back. Or Gallup and the 202, which would still give me a good wide receiver and Gallup.
Right.
That's tough. I think I'm going the pick just because I feel like I can get more. But I think Gallup's going to be great. So if I need a running back, I'm taking the 105, or if I need a quarterback, I'm taking the 105. But I think I'm going Gallup in the 202, unless I'm already loaded and I just want one stud wide receiver.
What about you?
So
Devin?
I'm gonna sit right here on the fence. Okay.
My issue with this is that for me, I have a tough time making these types of deals until the pick is like on the clock in the draft.
Okay.
So if I have that 105 pick, I'm not selling it now. I'm holding that 105 pick until 104 or 105 is on the clock. And then I'd like to see what the board looks like before deciding if it's worth my time to trade down. That being said, if I own Gallup and 202 and somebody's offering me that, then yes, I would trade for the pick. So I guess in either case, give me the 105, and I'm not really interested in trading down from that spot until later on.
Yeah, so I went the opposite way here, and I will be the first person to admit that I am a Michael Gallup stan. I have been since day one. So that's probably my bias showing. But I also the depth in this year's draft is just so insane in my view that I feel that Michael Gallup plus the players that are available, wide receiver, running back, whatever, um, it's so good that I feel like getting Michael Gallup and getting that 202 that I would be making out pretty well. But I mean, the cool thing is that, you know, we kind of all looked at this a little bit differently. But Devin, since the 202 was brought up, what are some second round wide receivers that you kind of have your eye on wherever?
So this is a player that I actually have. If you're looking at my overall rankings, is sitting like at the end of the first round for me. Well, I guess in a 1 QB league and a 2 QB league, it's a different story. But this is somebody that I'm targeting in all my drafts in the second round, and it's Michael Pittman. So he's like my top, I guess what I would call sleeper pick at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm starting to see a lot of people start talking about him, which is kind of unfortunate because I feel like he's really flown under the radar, but I like him a lot. Very successful in college, got good, strong hands. He's a big alpha type wide receiver. He's not limited to one area of the field. He can win at all three levels. He's extremely physical. He draws penalties like nobody's business. So, I mean, the only real like knock on him that I have is that he's not super quick laterally, like not a ton of agility, but it's still not terrible. But I really like him, and I think that he's somebody that could come out of, be a day 2 NFL draft pick and just, as long as he's in a decent situation, I think that he could really come on strong and end up being his team's number 1 wide receiver. So that's kind of my guy at the top of the second round that I'm looking at. The other second round wide receiver that I really like as well is KJ Hamler.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if you like Henry Ruggs, then KJ Hamler is somebody that you should be targeting as well, because I feel like you can get kind of the same results at a highly discounted price. He's somebody that should be available in the second round or even late second round of drafts. And he's fast, extremely fast. He's a good route runner. He's electric after the catch. So a lot of the same stuff that people like in Henry Ruggs, I see in KJ Hamler. So those are 2 guys that I'm specifically looking at in the second round that are on my list of targets.
So, in your opinion, what's the highest pick you would use to get Pittman?
So looking at my rankings in a 1 QB league, I actually have him ranked as my number 11 overall player.
Okay.
In a 2 QB league, I've got him at 15. So
Okay.
I'm very comfortable taking him in late first, early second range.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I feel like in the last maybe 2 weeks, his name has been thrown around a lot as a guy you should go get as a sleeper, as you described it. And it's funny because I've always been sitting in the background like, oh yeah, nobody talked about Pittman. That's cool. Like I'll snag him. I'm fine with that. And now leading up to the draft, we're 10 days away. You're just hearing more and more about him, and I'm like, everybody, hey, let's go back to a couple weeks ago where we weren't talking about the guy because, I definitely he was someone that I was high on, and now I have a feeling that he might be one of those guys I don't get as many shares of as I thought I was going to a couple weeks ago because he's going to be one of those names that ride the hype train into the draft. And I actually wouldn't be surprised if Michael Pittman is one of those guys that goes like top 10 picks of the second round in the actual NFL draft. that's kind of like now that the hype train is kind of building up on him, I think that's where he ends up going. Even if a team trades up to go get him, I could see it. A team like maybe the Packers trading up in the second round if they don't grab a wide receiver in the first round and kind of have that complement to Devontae Adams. And for some reason they're a team that's been kind of sticking out in my mind that will somehow get their hands on him. But yeah, that's cool. I mean, we're talking about him now. I wish other people hadn't been talking about him for the last couple of weeks. But yeah, I like Pittman. Hamler is a guy that I honestly haven't had much of an opinion on, just because I haven't watched enough of him. So I usually don't like to come up with opinions on guys that I haven't watched enough of. But he's another guy that maybe in the next 10 days I kind of try to take a look at myself and see what I think about him. But all right, let's go to this next one here. So this is from Blue Jay Way at Way_Blue Jay. Please ask Devin who he rates higher, Isaiah Hodgins or Lynn Bowden Jr., and what he likes and dislikes about both.
So this question was kind of funny because I saw this on the outline here, and so I pulled up my rankings to look, and as fate would have it, I have them ranked right next to each other. So they're pretty far down my board, to be honest. I've got Hodgins as my wide receiver 21 and Bowden as my wide receiver 22. So these, I mean, after a certain point when you're doing your rankings, there's a lot of guys that get grouped together. The tiebreaker with a lot of these players, there's going to be a lot of shuffling at the bottom of the board due to draft capital. Guys that get drafted higher get moved up because they're going to get more opportunity to see the field. So that's a lot of what it's going to come down to with these types of players. I do, however, I mean, there's certain things that I like about them. For Hodgins, my top thing about him, I love his hands. I feel like watching him, I didn't see him drop a single pass. He's got a huge catch radius, so he's a big outside wide receiver. However, his athleticism is kind of an issue to me. He's not fast. He doesn't really present a lot of opportunities after the catch. So that's one of the big issues with him. Bowden, on the other hand, I love what I see with Bowden, but I feel like he's incredibly raw. He got forced into playing quarterback for most of last season, and so he didn't get to develop further as a wide receiver. And I think that one of the issues is going to be he's very landing spot dependent because it really depends on how he fits whatever team drafts him, how they plan on using him, because you could deploy him in as a running back, you deploy him as a wide receiver. He could be a Taysom Hill type player that is coming off the bench for gadget plays. So it really just depends on how he's going to be used. But obviously, I mean, he won the Paul Hornung Award this last year, which is for the most versatile player in college football. And you look at the guys who have won that award in the past, and it's guys like Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey, Odell Beckham. So, I mean, there's a lot of big name guys that have won that award. So it's really tough to say at this point. I gave the tiebreaker to Hodgins just because I know what to expect with him. I know his skills as a wide receiver, but I will say that I think Bowden has higher upside than Hodgins does, as long as he's in the right system.
Yeah, and it's funny because I'm going to give my man Bill here a shout out. He was on. God, this was maybe a month ago. He was on with Sonny from Big Knowledge Football. Oh God, a couple other people doing a rookie mock draft, and Lynn Bowden's name came up, and I forgot who had picked him in the mock, but he spoke so highly of the guy that I decided to kind of do a little research on him myself, and I ended up coming out of there and going, Wow, I like this guy too. After watching him a little bit, like you said, the versatility, I think may actually help his draft status because actual NFL teams love guys that can do a little bit of everything. But again, Hodgins is like one of those guys that I really haven't had an opportunity to look at too much. So I don't know a lot about him, but that's why we have guys like you on, because you can school me a little bit and give me a little bit of knowledge about these guys, because without smart people like you and Bill, I'd be running around here blind most of the time. So yeah, it's cool that you have Hodgins just slightly over Bowden, but yeah, it's funny. As soon as you kind of looked at your rankings, I saw that look on your face, and I was like, I bet you they're like right next to each other, or like 2 spots away from each other. And sure enough, you have them, at 21 and 22 in your rankings.
Mm-hmm.
So, got this one here, and I think I may have forgotten to put the person's handle on that. So I'm sorry. I will shout you out in a tweet later. But this is a late night trade poll, one QB non PPR, Keenan Allen and the 305 or the 103, and he has here in parentheses Judy, Lamb, or Taylor, which I'm assuming are the top 3 on his personal board. So, Bill, who would you take in this trade? Allen in the 305 or the 103?
If I have the 103, I'm not moving it for Allen in the 305 because I probably earned that 103, and Allen's not going to do me.
Yeah,
he's not going to help my, team that's probably in rebuild. So I'm going 103 pretty easily here, I think.
What about you, Devin?
Yeah, I'll take the 103. The only thing that changes that for me is if I am a contender that somehow has the 103 and I need a wide receiver. I obviously trust Keenan Allen's ability to produce consistently for the next couple of years over what I would trust a rookie to do. So if that's the case, I just feel like you could probably get more for the 103 than you could, than Keenan Allen at this point.
Absolutely. And it's funny. I'll pull back the curtain a little bit here. I voted for the Keenan Allen side just because I'm a big Keenan Allen fan. But after listening to you two guys talk, you guys are absolutely right. I had the 103 in the league, and I earned it. It wasn't through a trade that I got that pick. And Bill knows where I'm going with this. So, someone offered me Chris Godwin for the 103 and the 203. And in my head, I'm like, wow, well, this is like an instant accept. But I DM'd Bill and I was like, Bill, is there something I'm missing here? Like, it just seemed so easy of an accept that I was like, I must be missing something. Maybe Chris Godwin got into a car accident or something, or maybe I'm just overvaluing Chris Godwin too much. And Bill was like, nah, dude, it's an instant accept. And I had gotten a lot of offers for that 103. I had gotten offers to move down to the 107 and 108 and collect other smaller assets. And those are deals I didn't take. But when that Chris Godwin deal came along, it was kind of like, yeah, I'm going to accept it. I'm just going to run it by Bill to make sure I'm not missing something. But
did I ask you if that was a 1 QB or Superflex?
You did. I told you it was a super flex.
Oh,
so, but yeah, I mean, and Chris Godwin is much younger than Keenan Allen, so even my team that needs help, I mean, I'm still getting a young guy that I'm going to be able to build my team around, for many years. But those are the kind, I almost think when you have a pick in the top 3, those are the type of deals you need to be looking for to move out of the 103. You need to be looking for those, big
unless
assets.
unless you're in love with a rookie. I mean, I don't have a problem with that. Like I don't have a problem staying at 103 and 203 if you're in love with one of those running backs and then one of those wide receivers that you're going to get at 203, which is still a pretty good wide receiver. I don't have a problem with that, but you're taking two unknowns at that point. You don't even know their situation yet. So it's one of those difficult things that do you want a 23-year-old wide receiver who was the wide receiver 2 last year that's getting a quarterback who's very comfortable throwing to, his wide receivers that are, in the short and intermediate routes, I mean, and the way that offense is built, just funneling passes to. I mean, that's kind of my thought there, but like I can't blame somebody for going the other route on that. I think it's, I think you got value there, but I mean, I can see where people love rookies, especially right now. So, yeah, but I think you did the right thing.
And you use the word there, which is real important, which is value. In my case, trading away the 103 for Godwin, that's value. I don't think trading away the 103 for Keenan Allen, unless, like you said, Devin, they obtain that pick through a trade and they're actually a really good team, that changes the script a little bit. But if you're the legit 103, you were the third worst team in that league last year. A 28-year-old Keenan Allen doesn't turn you from a bottom 3 team to a top 3 team overnight. And I think, as you also said in the last question, trading that pick on the clock will probably net you more value than Keenan Allen. So it's funny, as we're all talking through this, I'm realizing that I probably actually chose the wrong side on that deal. I should have went with the 103 and what was that? What was 103? Oh, it was just a 103 instead of Keenan Allen in the 305. But that's what we're here for, because sometimes you have an opinion on something and you got to talk it through to realize that maybe you weren't looking at it the right way.
Well, and I don't even think that you have to wait necessarily till you're on the clock. But if you just wait till the NFL draft, I guarantee the pick values will increase day one of the NFL draft when people see where some of these players go. I mean, and to your point with Keenan Allen, like because of the fact that he's 28 years old, if you trade for him, it's already value lost, right? Because he's not gonna get more valuable from age 28 on. Whereas Godwin at least has, he can still increase his value further from where he is.
Yeah, and you bring up a really good point about trading during the NFL draft once you kind of see where these guys go. If Jerry Jeudy or CeeDee Lamb go to the Broncos, and now all of a sudden we're looking at a team with Drew Lock, we're looking at a team with Cortland Sutton and Jeudy or Lamb and, Melvin Gordon, Phillip Lindsay, that just increases value. Or if Taylor goes, 32 to the Kansas City Chiefs, all of a sudden, his value just skyrockets. So, yeah, I agree with you, Devin. That's the time to trade the pick.
Also, it's not PPR; it's standard. So, there's a lot of points lost there. So, I wouldn't be including those wide receivers in my top 3. If his top 3 if their top 3 is Jeudy, Lamb, Taylor, I think they need to reevaluate who their top 3 are.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't even.
I think it needs to be
I don't even have those guys in my top 3.
Yeah, it's going to be all the running backs.
For sure. And I agree with you both there. I think that, that's just what he or she put in the tweet. And I figured if those were the 3 players being listed, that was probably their top 3.
Right.
Wouldn't be my top 3 because, I mean, I have at least 3 running backs going before the first wide receiver. That's just my kind of personal rankings. And there's, maybe an argument made, for one more running back to go before the first wide receiver. But, yeah, I mean, I appreciate you guys because you guys actually you talked me out of making a bad decision. But if I had made this bad decision, um, what are some of the third round wide receivers that maybe you would point me to, Devin, and tell me to kind of focus in on those guys?
Sure. So I've got two, just like I had two second-round wide receivers. These are two third-round wide receivers that I'm going to be targeting. The first is Quintez Cephas out of Wisconsin. And I've got him as my, let me flip back to it here just to make sure. I've got him as my wide receiver 13 right
Okay.
now. Now, he was on a lot of people's radar, and then he ran a 4.7 340 at the combine, which I was like blown away by the fact that it was that bad. However, he was one of the lucky people that got to have an actual pro day before they all got shut down,
Yeah.
and he ran a 4.56. So even if he split the difference, that's significantly better than 4.73. So he's definitely not like a fast type wide receiver, but one of the things that I really love about him, he's extremely aggressive on the field. So well, lots of times when I'm evaluating college wide receivers, I see them kind of just get pushed around by defensive backs. And even though this guy is he weighed in at 202, 6'1", so he's not like incredibly big or anything, but he is extremely aggressive. He just bullies those cornerbacks, and he's super intense blocking. He's got extremely good awareness, looking for back shoulder throws and things of that nature. So I do like him as a third round pick, and I comped into James Jones. So not somebody that's going to be like a huge, he's never going to be a wide receiver one in the league. But again, you'd be pretty lucky to get a wide receiver one in the third round anyway. So he's somebody that I'm looking at. I think he can be a nice secondary piece on your dynasty team. And then the other guy that I have, there is Van Jefferson, is somebody that I've been looking at in that same range. So I've got him actually ranked right after Cephas. He's my wide receiver 14.
Okay.
And Van Jefferson, I think, really flew under people's radars. I realized this, Bill, when we were ranking our guys for the Rookie Digest, is that I was like significantly higher on him than anybody else was, and it like artificially pushed him up our overall wide receiver rankings. I'm trying to even find him here. So we have him in the digest, which is our composite rankings, as wide receiver 21. And so I was significantly higher on him than the rest of the group. But he's a slot wide receiver. He never had insane production in college. I mean, his best season was this last year with 657 yards. But he is, and I won't say the best, but he's definitely top 3 route runners in the class. That's not an exaggeration. I mean, he is crazy good route runner. He has a super good release off the line of scrimmage, and he's a huge red zone threat. I mean, because of how good his routes are, he can separate so quickly in such a short space that he just creates he's great on those like quick slants and ins and outs, like right on the goal line. So he's the type of person that is I think that he'll be a nice slot wide receiver for an NFL team. I comped him to Taiwan Taylor, kind of like what people expected Taiwan Taylor to be. Obviously, that hasn't really panned out, but a lot of people are really high on him. And I mean, Taiwan Taylor got drafted in the 3rd round of the NFL draft, so I kind of see a similar thing with Van Jefferson. The only thing is, his ceiling's pretty capped, and he's already going to be 24 by the time he plays in the NFL. So just something to keep in mind. But again, in the 3rd round, I'm getting these guys that I think can really provide value for you to actually start on bye weeks and things of that nature. So I look for these guys that I think can have value increases as the year goes on. That's kind of how I work my kind of later rounds, third round and beyond, as I draft guys that I think will increase in value, have a shot to increase in value, and then I can just flip them for, maybe I drafted this guy in the third this year, I can flip him for a second at the end of the year and get somebody, you kind of just chug and plug like that.
Yeah, and it's funny, Bill's smiling at me because I have one league where we draft super early. We drafted like 2 weeks ago, and this is a 14 team super flex, and I got Cephas at 410. So
That's 52nd pick.
Yeah, that's nice.
yeah, so yeah, I was thrilled when he was still there at 410 because I was like this is my dude, and there was really like a giant neon sign that was just around him that all the arrows were pointing to pick me. It wasn't even difficult. So I've heard a lot of good things said about him since that draft, which is good because I kind of had a high opinion of him, going into it. But I like getting a guy at 410 that you're saying should be a third rounder.
So Jeff Okuda during the combine said that he was the most difficult cover for him. So that's a positive thing for Cephas. And Okuda is supposed to be a top 5 pick in the draft. And the reason that's why I suggested for the Rookie Digest that we have the analysts' rankings next to the composite. So,
Yeah.
it's just hard because if I'm just looking at quarterbacks all the time, it's very difficult for me to know the in-depth rankings for you know what I mean, the intricacies of those, the other positions essentially.
Well, Bill, you better have a whole bunch of Cephas on your fantasy teams this year. You've been told. I better talk to you after all the drafts, and better be a lot of Cephas for you, buddy.
I'm gonna draft capital. That's my cheat sheet.
And that's so true. And actually, Devin, talking about that, how much you talked about draft capital, but how much does landing spot maybe affect your rankings after the draft, if it does at all?
Okay, so yeah, landing spot and draft capital I have in 2 separate categories because draft capital, I mean, you've got if a guy's, I will always go back to this, and I'm happy to admit that I was flat out wrong on this one. Pre-draft 2 years ago, so for 2018, Equinemius St. Brown was my number 1 wide receiver pre-draft.
Okay.
And I really liked him, but obviously falling to the 6th round, like clearly you're not going to get, it's a good situation. I mean, he went into a situation with Aaron Rodgers throwing him the ball, but he's a 6th round pick. So, good luck working your way onto the field. So, draft capital is what dropped him there. But landing spot, a lot of people last year complained and said, oh, AJ Brown, terrible landing spot. And he was still my number 1 wide receiver post-draft. He was drafted in the 2nd round, so good enough draft capital to see the field. And as we saw, I preach this all the time, situations, you think you know a situation, but situations can change so fast. And it didn't even take an entire season. I mean, midway through the season, here comes Tannehill, and Tannehill loves throwing the ball to AJ Brown. And just like that, he rose up in value. And I see the prices he's going for now, and I think it's ridiculous. I mean, I was getting him at the end of the 1st round, early 2nd round, all last season during rookie drafts.
Yeah. I saw a post today on Twitter that a guy offered Devontae Adams in 2 different leagues for AJ Brown, and they both got denied.
Wow.
I mean, we all know it happens though. You got a rookie that blows up. I mean, it's like a chastity belt. Nobody's gonna get in there. So
it's so true, though. I mean, and I think, Devin, you're right. I think so many people dismissed AJ Brown last year because it was like, he's on the Titans. Mariota sucks. They don't throw the ball a lot. Everything goes through Henry. They have Corey Davis there. It's just he's not going to do anything. And like you said, I mean, situations change. Snap of your fingers. They take Mariota out. They decide they're going to go with Tannehill and see what he can do. He kind of lights a fire under that offense, and AJ Brown takes off. And now, like Bill said, you can't. Apparently you can't get AJ Brown for Devontae Adams. So and it's funny. One of the ball blast girls, I think it might have been Kate, put out a couple tweets talking about the top 12 dynasty running backs from 5 years ago and the top 12 dynasty wide receivers from 12 years ago or from 5 years ago, and explained why in your startups you should lean more wide receiver heavy because the running backs change so quickly. And it's funny because there's probably, and I don't remember everyone on the list. I remember just kind of going through the list, and I think there was one running back who's still kind of relevant from that list 5 years ago. But the funny thing is that there were probably only 6 or 7 wide receivers that are still relevant from 5 years ago on that wide receiver list. So, things do change so quickly. And as much as we think we know a situation right now, I mean, it can change tomorrow. New coach, new quarterback, what was it, 4 years ago? Tony Romo was still in the league, and there was some 4th-round pick, named Dak Prescott that no one thought anything of. Tony Romo can't go. Dak Prescott gets his chance. He kind of runs with it, and now Tony Romo is announcing games, and Dak Prescott is a top 5 quarterback in the league, and it's crazy how quickly things change. I mean, last year there were probably a lot of people that thought Nick Foles was the guy you needed to own in Jacksonville. There weren't a lot of people talking about a 6th-round pick, Gardner Minshew, too much, and now it looks like he's going to be the guy starting maybe week 1 in 2020, and Nick Foles is now battling Mitch Trubisky. That's another one, and you could just go through a million of these different permeations of guys we thought were good that weren't good. I mean, we all have, I hear all the, Bishop Sankey war stories about how high he was drafted in rookie drafts, and, Trent Richardson's, and, the list goes on. And, the longer you play this game, the longer your list gets. So,
man, Trent Richardson, that was tough because like the first year or two was really good. And then, somebody trades for him and then, it's just like in the shitter. But, Minshew was a huge learning point for me, Devin, for the Rookie Digest, because like I really liked him, and I got influenced by external sources when I would like rank the guys. Like I would have had him so much higher in my rankings last year, but I'm like, okay, nobody's talking about him, this, that, and the other. And that was like a big learning point for me to stick to my guns, regardless of like what everybody else is saying. So
no, I'm with you on that. I had one last year as well. Pre-draft, when I was doing my scouting, a guy that I really liked was Mecole Hardman. And I had him, I think, around 7 or 8 pre-draft, but I got too scared, honestly, to publish that after what had happened with Equanimeous St. Brown, and so I moved him down. And then during the draft, I see him get drafted in the 2nd round, and I'm like, "You've got to be kidding me!"
yeah,
And so then it just looks like I artificially moved him back up based on draft capital, even though I was actually high on him before. So I'm trying to stick to my guns, and not let that St. Brown fiasco deter me from from ranking players how I feel they should be ranked.
yeah.
And it's funny because you guys are actually doing the work. You're watching the film. You're coming up with your own rankings, and it's hard for you guys who are actually doing the work and looking at this to not be influenced sometimes by outside sources, and that's kind of a lesson for all of us to learn. A lot of people have their own little rankings as they go into their rookie drafts and everything, and you know don't let other people get you. If you're looking at something, you're really seeing it, go with it. Hey, you might be wrong. It might be Equinemius St. Brown, but it might be AJ Brown. It might be McCole Hardman. In your case, Bill, it might be Gardner Minshew. And listen, if you can find somebody in this game that's perfect in everything that they do, send them my way, because I would love to talk to that person. I've had, just in my opinions, I've had a lot of things that I was right on that people were wrong on, but I have a whole lot more things that I was wrong on that other people tried to show me the light, and I said, nope, this is what I'm seeing. I'm going with this. And you have to take the right with the wrong. And sometimes you roll snake eyes, and sometimes you roll yourself a 7 and you get craps. But we're about an hour into this thing, so Devin, thank you for coming on. I just want to remind everybody, we are giving away a couple of copies of the Dynasty 101 Rookie Guide. That's
Rookie Digest.
or Rookie Digest. Sorry, I put guide in here, and it's funny because I wrote digest everywhere else. On next week's show, so remember, send in your rate and reviews. Take a picture, send it to me, to Bill, or send it to the Fantasy Timeline Twitter handle. Let us know. We've gotten a lot already, so definitely there's been some interest in this, but and just again, do it on Apple Podcasts, do it on if your podcast directory allows you to do it. Send us the DM. If your podcast directory doesn't allow you to do it, just shoot us a DM or shoot us a tweet and just say, hey guys, love the show. You guys are great. Hey, you guys suck, but I want a Rookie Digest anyway. And let us know. And we're gonna pick a couple names at random, and we're gonna announce them on next week's show so that you can peruse through it a little bit before the actual NFL draft from Roger Goodell's basement takes place. And then once that happens, like Devin said, you'll get that update, and then you'll be able to stroll into your rookie draft, and in my opinion, have an advantage over the other people in your draft that isn't using it. So, Devin, thanks a lot, man. I appreciate you coming on, dropping a lot of knowledge about wide receivers. There's a couple guys I've added to my list that I now have to try to watch a little bit more before the actual NFL draft comes on. Just let everybody know where they can find you and what you're doing.
Yeah, so you can find me. I'm on Twitter at Dynasty Devin. I also run the Dynasty 101 official account, which is D101_HQ. And of course, the website is dynasty101.com. We've got the Rookie Digest on there. We've got Trade Calculator. I'm prepping some other kind of wide receiver stuff that's going to go up on there hopefully within the next few weeks. So yeah, check it all out. And I'm happy to answer any, trade, wide receiver, scouting questions, anything that you may have. So go ahead and feel free to hit me up.
Devin, give me one more deep wide receiver.
Oh, okay. Let me look real fast. One more deep wide receiver that I really like.
4th round guy.
A 4th round guy. It gets harder and harder the further you go, but I'll give you 2 names to watch in the 4th round. The first is Juwan Jennings. He's big and slow, but he's super strong. So he's somebody that could, in the right situation. I mean, he was even mocked in like first round NFL draft mocks like earlier in the offseason, before he ran like a 4.7 something at the combine. So he's one. The other one that I kind of like that I think I haven't really heard a lot about is Collegia Lipscomb from Vanderbilt. I don't have a lot to say about him, but he is a great route runner. Obviously, he got hurt big time by playing at Vanderbilt. So, but he worked as a kick and punt returner. So I think that he could bring some. He's a type of guy that could immediately see the field and then hopefully work his way into a wide receiver role somewhere. So that's another guy I'm keeping my eye on.
And I'm sorry, Josh, for just doing this and asking more questions, but okay, Chase Claypool, is he a wide receiver or tight end?
A lot of people thought tight end, but he ran like a 4.42, I think, at the combine. And so I'm pretty sure he's staying at wide receiver. I don't think, I just confirmed 4.42. I mean, he's big, but I think he's gonna be a wide receiver through and through. I don't see him transitioning.
Where's he ranked for you?
I've got him. Let's see. He's my wide receiver 17. So I've got him, he's kind of like a late third round guy.
Okay.
Actually, I have him right ahead of Tyler Johnson, if that's a good kind of guide for or reference for a lot of people, I think.
Sure. And Gibson, you've pretty much moved him to running back, right?
Yeah, he was on my list of wide receivers to scout, but Kyle and I had to fight for him, and I let Kyle have him. But Gibson's a guy I really like too. So,
did you analyze him as a wide receiver?
I didn't actually do a write up.
Okay.
It was about halfway through our scouting process, and he was still on my list to do. But
okay.
I did watch film on him, just not as much as I would have.
Right. Yeah, he's an interesting one. I mean, I'm assuming he's going to be a running back. He's probably going to be like along the lines of like the Pollard, how he kind of was that sort of multifaceted type guy. But yeah, sorry, Josh, for me just chiming in and doing this. There was a couple guys I was like popped in my head I wanted to hear about. So
listen, you can keep asking questions. I'll sit here and just soak up all of this information for as long as you want to keep going. So you never have to apologize to me because I mean, like I've said throughout, Devin's a smart dude. He's done the work. So any extra nuggets of information that he wants to give out, I'll sit here, I'll make my mental notes, and then when I re-listen to the podcast tomorrow, I'll actually write them down so that when I stroll into my my rookie drafts, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember Devin said this. Gotcha. And people will be like, wait, why didn't you take this guy? I'd be like, don't worry about it. I'll see you in the championship. So again, thank you, Devin, for coming on. Thank you. If you were in the live stream, we appreciate it. If you're watching a replay on YouTube or listening to the pod, we appreciate you also. Every little bit helps. We love the feedback. If you're on YouTube, click the bell and subscribe so you know when we go live. If you're listening to the podcast, again, subscribe. This can actually work out in your favor, rating, reviewing, because we're giving away a couple of the Dynasty 101 rookie digests. And I'll say this one more time before we're out, but I can't say it enough. $10 to give yourself such a major advantage. Bill, I know you and I spend way too much in entry fees in leagues. An extra $10 to gain an advantage to maybe win one or two more championships, it is well worth it in my opinion. So,
man, and the amount of hours that were spent on this guide is just disgusting. Like, yeah. I mean,
I will say that's the only benefit to like the whole quarantine thing is it gave me plenty of extra time to be able to dig deep and write more on these guys. So you're welcome, world.
I mean, I can't, like, if you just look at, like, I have 21 quarterbacks, so I'm lucky. Like, I only have 21 guys. Like, some of these positions, how many did you do, Devin?
I think I did 32. I'm sure I'll have more for the post-draft update, but I just, I kind of got lost on the end late round guys trying to figure out who's going to get drafted and who won't.
Sure. Yeah, it's just like crazy because like every player takes so much time, and you just don't even realize how much work has been put into this. Like, just my 21, I put in. I mean, I can't even tell you how much time. I probably averaged 3 to 4 hours a player. So, like,
yeah, it's a lot.
Like that's that's a lot. So that's 2 weeks of full-time work right there.
And Devin, you mentioned it earlier. You're getting over 160 pages before the draft, and then
I think
last
year, I think our final tally was, hold on, I have it right here. 290 was how many pages we were at last year after the draft.
That was with everything. Yeah.
That was with everything. So you're getting a lot.
If you get this right now, you're pouring over 160 pages of information, and then once the draft happens, that almost doubles to 300 pages. So
yeah.
We probably will know these guys' favorite color, what they like to eat, what their favorite fast food restaurant is. I mean, it's in depth. It's a lot of information, and I mean, it's going to help you. I've walked into too many rookie drafts without information, or with the limited information that I could gather on my own. You're going to walk in, if you have this, with many people doing, Bill said, 3 to 4 hours worth of work on each quarterback. You're getting multiple hours worth of work on each running back, on each wide receiver, on each tight end. I mean, these are people who have put in the time, who have watched the games, who know what they're looking at. And I mean, unless your job is to do this for a living, no one person has the time to do the amount of work that these guys have done on all these players. So for $10, I mean, you're getting a lot of hard work for a very minimal price.
Yeah, man. And even the Devy, like, I'm never going to put in the work. I don't have enough Devy leagues for me to like put work into it. So it's just so easy to go to something like, the Rookie Digest and look stuff up, because I mean, that's what I do for the few leagues that I actually have Devy, because it's just not worth the work on my part.
And that's me for IDP as well. I mean, I know a few IDP guys, but I'll be honest, I haven't done any IDP research for rookies at all this year, just because I've been so swamped with the wide receivers. But I can vouch for the IDP guys that we have. They're really good. They know their stuff. Same with our Devy guy. That's all he focuses on all year is the Devy. So, I mean, I can vouch for everybody that's scouted one of these positions. I've used your guys' work for my rookie drafts in the past, because obviously I spend most of my time on the wide receivers and don't have a lot of time to scout outside the few top guys at the other positions. So,
and if you've been listening, throughout the last couple of weeks, I mean, Bill's on here every week, but we had Kyle, we've had Devin, everybody's just super smart, super knowledgeable, and you're getting all of that in one compact just spot where you can go, hey, I need a running back. Let me look this up. Hey, I need a wide receiver. Let me look this up. And you just have all of that information at your fingertips. So now that and this is all my fault, now that I've added an extra 15 minutes, just kind of telling everybody how much I love the Rookie Digest. Bill, I think it's time for us to get out of here.
All right. Late